Oh, it's like the difference between so like even this was hurting all over 2 days it just hurt it on the side, you know. They all set up the cheese station and everything. Who did this?
You ever seen that before?
No, well it wasn't here last week. So maybe that's what it was. Isn't this lovely?
Islam, Mars.
It's loud. Did you get a sound? That's a wrap.
14, yo.
Huh?
You watched last night?
Or I didn't even know that play.
Yeah, yo, 14, yo.
We got it. I missed our game. What's wrong? 1 point.
1 point, yo. 1 point.
I didn't think that's 2 nights in a row they played. Who in a row that was bad one? But that's 2 nights in a row they played. That's why I thought they were. No, true. When I was watching, they say next game.
Yeah, Nets.
Monday. So I'm thinking it's Monday, but I guess they had a game last night too. Yeah. They didn't say that in between.
Rosie!
To play New Jersey?
Yeah. Islam, Mars. That's right. We have an interesting one for today. Face the east. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe. Allah, Father of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. He was holy prophet. Noble to Ali. Islam.
Don't forget your indoor shoes, folks.
Prophet warns all Muslims governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. Friday, January 15th, 1929. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your card at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their carding button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble to Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble to Ali.
Islam.
Islam. To be proclaimed at every meeting, Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Matriarchal. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam. This is the instruction from your Prophet Matriarchal. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on. But the wicked comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near. His divine prophet, I know Ali, and that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Juali. Islam. Now, if you could talk quick, fast on your amendments to prayer. And how could you say certain stuff?
Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone knows the prayer. And I just changed it a little bit as the womb of man. So I say Allah, the mother and father of the universe. And when it comes to any of the stuff that's in the masculine, I usually change it to the feminine. So Allah the protector, I'll say Allah the protectress. Because as we know, in a lot of our translations, it's come down because of the society that we live in to a masculine, but really it's whole. So it's supposed to encompass both. So just to be true to myself, that's how I see it. Well, that's great. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. I remember watching Mariah being doing a lecture on the word father and the etymology, Peter and all that, but it comes back to mother anyway. Exactly. So when we say father, we're actually saying mother.
There is no father. It's only mother and son, not mother and son. So there's no husband and nothing. It's only the mother. Mason is the mother and the son. That's it.
And Amazon too. I was reading that the other day. Amma is mother, Zon is son.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're son of widows. We don't need mother or nothing. So we're just mothers that be the only thing. But the sons are just our son, which you get Mason into. But it's cool to do that still. There's no wrong done. The etymology is still good. You get back in the apartment, but if you wake up, she's still on the same track to wake up the female energy. She's still on a good mindset. Because if that's the way, or you're going to wake other people up, then you have to do what you have to do. So I'll support that.
That's one.
No, I'm there.
Yes,
Because remember, the females are sleeping, so if she's feeling that energy, and there's sort of ways to do it, but you have to allow it. You know what I mean? Then like you said, like I said, still we want the mother and son, she's still the number one.
And I think it's important though, because I remember it was last week or the week before, Kujo was doing a lecture with someone, and they were talking about why they must obey their husbands. And I remember us having a conversation about that here in class a while back. But somebody looked up the etymology of obey, it just means to listen to.
To listen, yeah, to listen.
So, it's not about subjugation or any of that stuff.
Yeah, and they have roles. So it's key to cooperate in that setting.
True.
So Omar, you wanna talk about the little story about the picture and the other picture and the write-up thing before we get into it?
Or, you mean the big picture?
The little picture.
Oh, well, just that my mom, who used to teach Black history, was quite involved in the so-called Black movement, so to speak. I've been sort of trying to sort of get her to evolve into sort of where we're supposed to be at. She obviously came out of the era of Black Panthers, Martin Luther King, all that kind of stuff, which I think, I've been sort of meditating on sort of what energies were given to those people and how to those people our creators versus how they've sort of been indoctrinating us. I'm noticing that there's a little bit of a difference as we can see the sort of stuff they're giving our offspring. And I've noticed that I think for us who have eyes to see, we can see that they are constantly adapting and sort of trying to keep us in a certain state. And I think they, for certain eras, there's certain sources that
That's the picture he's talking about.
So, anyways, and I'll sort of be quick about this, but she was talking to me about, she's like, well, I saw this poster about the Moorish Zionist Jews. And she's like, I saw it and I picked it up. She's like, well, we're not Jewish, right? She said, we're not Jewish. I said, well, Mom, and then I broke down what Jewish meant, how Jewish was really stood for the jewel, really stood for a level of knowledge, and that we were the original Jews.
So bad.
And so connecting that with that, yes, this is us. This is who we were and who we are. But one of the things that I have, started to open my eyes to is that all of us are connected to the screen. All of us in our families, we go back, we will find some uncle or aunt or someone that connects back to this. Yeah. And what she was telling me was, I thought initially that she was saying that she had been on some trip because she travels a lot, because she does a lot of outreach work and stuff. That I thought that it was since I had introduced her to this that she picked that poster up, that postcard up. But she said, no, I got that postcard 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So to me, it was quite profound because what I think was that was her opening me up to this. That
should have also been her.
Absolutely.
Unlocking.
That's the connection between time and space where there is nothing. Right. That was her sort of opening herself up to this. Yeah. But because we were having this big discussion, but she gets a little bit, I think, freaked out by this because she has, they have been quite entrenched in the Black movement and that kind of stuff. And I think for, Pooja and I were just talking about this, for the elders, that it's good, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and I'm unconvinced of that. But one of the things that I think is that, I've lost my train on that, but one of the things that I think is that that there's a connection through all of this. So I put that up there in terms of the other picture below it, which is her about 43 years ago, with me demonstrating for racist immigration policies. And I put that up there to remind us that very little has changed in 43 years. And so I just keep that as a reminder to us to let everyone know that this work really hasn't been done yet. So maybe we started to get on a better platform. So that's what that poster is there for, and that's reminiscent of the poster that we have here, which is the article that we have here that has that same picture on a larger format. But understanding that was us, that is us, and that we need to connect to that. So that kind of freaked me out. But then I've been telling her sort of about certain things, about the King Alfred plan, about all this kind of stuff. And she's like, well, I have these articles because back in the day, her and my father, because back in the day, they were marching and all that kind of stuff for blacks.
And she was telling me, because she was studying law at that point, and that she has been quite involved in, and this is the other thing that we have to really do, is we have to continue to study. And this is one of the things that even if we're not in a so-called Islam, even if we're not in a so-called formatted school or something, we need to be studying all the time. That's one of the things that the Prophet told us to do. So she has these articles that she had from certain think tanks and certain information that she's obviously gleaned, and she thought it was very, very, what's the word? It had that there was a connection with this to us. So anyways, I gave it to Cujo, and he'll read it off. This is from one of the articles, is a investigation, and this speaks to one of our Moors here who told me, and I won't mention his name, and I'll mention it, but he said that he was pulled over and that they had a whole write-up on him, on who he was, on the people he hung out with, and all this kind of stuff. So one of those is that, and then the other one is some stuff that's been gleaned from Joint Chiefs of Staff and stuff that they were looking to do in the 60s and 70s when they were seeing a connection between the so-called black groups and the sort of back to Africa stuff. So anyways, Google will read it out to you.
Oh, before you do though,
Yeah.
it's interesting. They said they already have interest because there's a new documentary about El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz. So they're talking about how the FBI had an eye on him even before he became a Muslim, and he was still in prison.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting just how much intel they have on people and how they can, I guess, identify. You know what I mean?
That,
Yeah.
that one there is like a young picture of him.
I don't know what's on Netflix. It's from 2020.
It's from 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Like a picture of a young
Yeah.
picture of
And then
I even had to that because I was doing a little bit of research, so like to issue a good Black History Month in that. So I was doing a little research on one of the guys who started Black History, or he wrote the Carter G.
Woodson, yeah.
Exactly. And one of the things that he was saying was that we should always seek education. And I found it so funny that he has a master's in European history, but all that he ever was bringing forth was about slavery and the miseducation of the Negro. So he knew where we had been. We've been all over the world, but for some reason, the only studies that he was able to bring back and enlighten this part of the world were studies that weren't really going to help him.
But you know, he is very good for
Yeah, he's a university, a Harvard graduate, also in fraternity there, so definitely has some conflicts of interest. Boulay.
Boulay. When you spawn the picture you pulled out?
Yeah.
You pull it out? Okay. Yeah, just bookmark that so we can bring that up. So we have the National Security Council Memorandum 46. So what we want to address again with regard to this is that this would have been the foundation of the Black identity extremists stuff that they brought up, saying, this whole same thing with Asiatics rising from the depths of poverty to be frustrated with racism and start doing whatever it is that they're doing, and that the FBI, not the FBI, the so-called U.S. corporate federal side was talking about how Black Identity Extremist report was not a legitimate report. It's not real. You know, this is propaganda or whatever like that, because everybody wants to use the Negro vote to save their position, right? The Democrats and the Republicans, right? Which here would be PC and liberal, the blues and the reds or whatever. Secret, March 17, 1978, Presidential Review Memorandum 46. 2. The Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Director of Central Intelligence. Subject, Black Africa and the U.S. Black Movement. The President has directed that a comprehensive review be made of current developments in Black Africa from the point of view of their possible impacts on the Black movement in the United States. The review should consider 1. Long-term tendencies of social and political development and the degree to which they are consistent with or contradict the U.S. interests. 2. Proposals for durable contracts between radical African leaders and leftist leaders of the U.S. Black community. 3. Appropriate steps to be taken inside and outside the country in order to inhibit any pressure by radical African leaders and organizations on the U.S. Black community for the latter to exert influence on the policy of the administration toward Africa. The President has directed that the National Security Council Interdepartmental Group for Africa perform this review. The review should be forwarded to the NSC Political Analysis Committee by April 20th, 1978.
National Security Council.
Yeah, NSC. Yeah. So long-term tendencies of social and political development and the degree to which they are consistent with or contradict the U.S. interests. So when we look at the Back to Africa movement that Noble Drew Ali told us that don't ever get the Moorish movement caught up with that. We know that they speak from the perspective of contradicting the U.S. policies. They speak that way, but they're actually really in favor with it. Because why would people who are perpetuating this idea of power to our people go to people who are oppressing them to say, give us a permit so we can get Washington, D.C. to do a march? They should just go there and march. Why are they going to these same people in order to get, permission, right, to do something that they should be just doing because they're claiming, because of their claims? Right? Proposals for durable contacts between radical African leaders and leftist leaders in the U.S. Black community. So that's when you look at King Alfred Plan, and it talks about the African ambassadors, the people who take posts to be ambassadors for the quote unquote blacks in America, and then they have somebody that they send over there to be their liaison with the African whatever, that all those people are in King Alfred Plan, that they're going to be unseated once it gets to the point where they can't handle it. Right, Brother Omar.
Just as many of you have been watching, Moussa Ujiri is with Trudeau right now in Africa, trying to garner support on the so-called African nations over there. That's another one of those Uncle Tom guys that is sort of involved in this, and you see his connection with sports, and they've obviously got him in there to be some kind of liaison between Trudeau and the so-called African, and probably from the perspective that, they should be lynching Trudeau on a certain level for the shit that he's been doing over there, or that their people have been doing over there, but they've got one of their figureheads there, who obviously is there to sort of make everything all right.
Appropriate steps to be taken inside and outside the country in order to inhibit any pressure by radical African leaders and organizations in the U.S. Black community for the latter to exert influence on the policy of the administration toward Africa. Objectives of our policy toward Black Africa is to prevent social upheaval which could radically change the political situation throughout the area. Objectives of our policy toward Black Africa is to prevent social upheavals which could radically change the political situation throughout the area.
Again, just to say that that's part of their thing, and I was talking to people about this earlier, about there's a fine line. If we pressure you too much, we're really gonna get up and start doing some stuff. So really the deal being that we just gotta keep you at that place. You know what I mean? Let's keep our boot on your neck, we've gotta keep you getting enough oxygen to keep going.
Enough oxygen that you don't die with the boot on your neck, right? And breathe with it.
I can't breathe. So, you're gonna say something.
Some of the points in this are gonna be the parts that were underlined. And then also part of this is also for Moors that are new to the information. Because last night I was on Instagram with these brothers, and they say that they're Moors, but they're on a Black mindset. So meaning that the things that they're using as a reference point are the slave myths, and the European doing this to our people, and like our people getting treated by and why do our people have to get whatever like that? And my thing with them was, well, get over it. Like, what are you gonna like? Well,
what about the wealth of history that happened before 400 years ago in this location?
Right? Because that's one of the things that I was bringing up was that, well, if we have something happening to us, right? We could look at it from the in front of the veil, and we look at it behind the veil. You look at it in front of the veil, you're going to be talking all this, emotional whatever, right? If you look behind the veil, you start realizing that it's us, because it's karmic what we're going through. It's not that somebody's doing something to us. Like, we set the stage for them to be able to do certain things to us. We put the thing in motion for them to do certain things to us. So part of this is because all the parts that are underlined is going to be the mindset of those who are just coming into this, but not having the full grasp of Moors from a political place, from a national place, from a spiritual place. They're just looking at it just as, well, we say that we're Moors and that's it, right? Not realizing that there's a deeper thing going on. So this part was underlined. Objectives of one of our policies toward Black Africa is to prevent social upheavals which could radically change the political situation throughout the area. Now we know that Noble Ali told the Moors before the 70s that every wheel of industry is going to stop, and it's not going to move again until it's in the Asiatics' favor. Noble Ali told the Moors that you are a nation. So if we're a nation, then we don't need some Europeans' objectives and their policy imposed on us. right? The other part that we were talking about was the whole idea of status, and status being why the abuses are happening, not somebody's doing the abuses. The abuses are happening because your status is dead. So you can say I'm a Moor, but if you go out there and you start talking about it doesn't matter what we call ourselves because we want unity amongst our people and all that stuff, then you're going in the pot to get cooked with everybody else. Right? Because status is really what the objective is. You know what I mean? Correcting the status so that these people don't have a certain level of jurisdiction over yourself, right? And then them not realizing that once they give that up, once they give up that status, now you're in the jurisdiction. Doesn't matter what you think or say or do or vote for or whatever. Once you don't have a status, once you don't have a nationality, you're going to be a victim. And also with regard to the colorable language that the colonists use in order to create the jurisdiction. So them saying something like Black Africa, that doesn't exist. There's no place called that. This is something that they made up just so that the Negro, Black, colored people could have some type of attachment to Africa, because they already know that all these people are indigenous Moors. They know if they came over here, they came over here on their own boat. There was no boats that brought our people here like in that context. So when they say Black Africa is to prevent the social upheaval and all this stuff, and they're looking at it like the social upheaval is them being Black and knowing that they're Black, and then them feeling threatened that these people know that they're Black, so now there's going to be an upheaval. That's not right? You know, the assumed level of incompetence. Right now, this was not underlined. The success or failure of our policy in the region depends on the solution of international and internal issues whose importance for the United States is on the increase. The success or failure of our policy in the region depends on the solution of international and internal issues. Right? So we know that all international and internal issues that U.S. and Canada has been instigated by them. Them going to places that they're not supposed to be. Them going to places that people never said, hey, come on there and help us or whatever. Them imposing democracy when people have republic mindsets all over the world and know exactly what they're doing when they start doing those things, right? But then again, with our people claiming the Black position, when they are engaged by the quote-unquote international community, it's only from commerce, only from them being consumed. It's not about relations like that in that context. U.S. interests in Black Africa. 1, political. If Black African states assume attitudes hostile to the U.S. national interests, our policy toward the white regimes, which is a key element in our relations with the Black states, may be subjected by the latter to great pressure for fundamental change. Thus, the West may face a real danger of being deprived of access to the enormous raw material resources in Southern Africa, which are vital for our defense needs, as well as of losing control over the Cape Sea routes by which approximately 65% of Middle Eastern oil is supplied to Western Europe. Now remember, this is 70s. So this number is probably 80-something% now. Right? And they're still going there to go get it. It's not like anything's changed from the 70s. Right? And again, going back to the idea that the African leaders who are in now, majority of them are compromised.
Correct.
And the last one that they probably had was Gaddafi, that was about to do something real for the whole continent, not just limited to his country only. Whereas you see all the other African leader puppets are limiting their activity to just their region. They're not looking at save the whole continent, right? And then another thing in here, it says, thus the West may face a real danger of being deprived of access to enormous raw material. Above West, they have in brackets whites. Right?
So sorry, just to let you, any of those things, those notations,
Yeah.
my mom,
Right, yeah.
having gone through them,
Right.
getting it from her perspective
Right.
as to what she's seeing.
Mhm.
Right? But, yeah.
And then again, because she's a law lady and all that stuff, so it's not like
So she's vetting it from that perspective, but obviously
with the black mindset, which
black mindset, but still
distorts it.
You just cross that out with European.
and if you cross it out and put European, then you can't say West, because Europe's East and North. European has nothing to do with West. So even that is part of the sorcery and the stealing of the birthright, that they create jurisdictions so that they can have jurisdiction. So create a term called the West, and everybody says, all right, West implies European domination, but all those dominators are from Eastern. So they shouldn't even be called that, but they called it that so that they can steal the birthright. They call it Middle East so they can go in there and steal the oil. They say democracy so that they can have jurisdiction. Right? Black Africa is an integral part of a continent where tribal and regional discord, economic backwardness, inadequate infrastructures, drought and famine are constant features of the scene. In conjunction with the artificial borders imposed by the former colonial powers, guerrilla warfare in Rhodesia, and widespread indignation against apartheid in South Africa are the above factors provide the communist states with ample opportunities for furthering their aims. This must necessarily redound to the detriment of US political interests. Right, so Gaddafi was fixing tribal and regional discord. He was fixing economic backwardness. He was fixing inadequate infrastructures. Drought and famine might have a real issue. And these constant features of that scene over there, of all these different inadequacies, once they're solved, then US can't be going certain places anymore. Right, so they have to, just like how they did here, create ghettos, put people in there, and now they have access. The same thing that they did with the continent, make it a fiction so that they can access it. And again, they can't do that without having people on the inside who are going to assist them in whatever it is they need so that they can have a foothold in these places.
You said
Right.
they can never do it without the inside out.
Yeah.
Never. And that's historically proven as well.
Yeah.
I was just going to add to that, because this was all done. My mom had her solar return when she was Aquarian, and so as I said, I've been trying to ease her into this, but she was telling me because she was in Nigeria just in the last little bit, and she's saying, and I was telling her that Nigeria has the 6th largest oil reserves in the world. So they are some of the wealthiest nations in the world. Yet she said the poverty there is absolutely incredible.
Mm.
She said that everyone to a man was dressed to the T.
Yeah.
They were dressed like as if they were like millionaires, and she said there was just people in ghettos just sitting, sitting. And what she says, and what's very interesting, and we're going through this sort of evolution, me and my mother, that I'm saying stuff to her that she's disagreeing with, and then she's relating back to me stuff and realizing that coming out of her mouth is exactly what I'm telling her. Because what she's realizing is there's a handful of Nigerians there that are absolutely super wealthy. They are so effing wealthy that it's, but the and this is what Cujo was alluding to, and it's really, and this is what she's saying, because I was saying to her, it's us. We have to start taking responsibility for our stuff. What they've got us convinced is that they have something that we need. We need to start to do for us. And anytime that happens, and anytime anyone wakes up enough to start doing that, that's when you start seeing the infiltration. That's when you start seeing this stuff. So I'm just, she has a very unique view because with her work, she gets to travel all over the place. But Nigeria was one of those places, like she said, was absolutely, it was very astonishing to see the level of poverty there and how bad it was, but yet how their own people are willing to watch that happen for this.
Yeah. Black Africa and the U.S. Black movement. Apart from the above mentioned factors adverse to U.S. strategic interests, the nationalist liberation movement in Black Africa can act as a catalyst with far-reaching effects on the American Black community by stimulating its organizational consolidation and by something radical actions.
I might try and see if I can get a better photo. I think she photocopied once. Maybe it's good. I don't know whether the original is that bad or the photocopy.
Yeah. Islam. Such a result would be likely if Zaire went the way of Angola and Mozambique. A reoccurrence of the events of 1967 and 68 would do grievous harm to the U.S. prestige, especially in view of the concern of the present administration with human rights issues. Right? So they know that these people that they're classifying as Black America or whatever are humans. They know that they have rights that apply to them. But again, once the people are taking the position that, oh yeah, Black movements and whatever is real, then these people are just talking rights. To get these people to think that, oh wow, they have a memorandum against us, so all we have to do is fight the memorandum and we'll defeat these people. Because we found the secret document that outlays all the stuff that what they're gonna try to do to us. Okay, but they're doing all that stuff to a fiction. They're not doing that to actual people. They're not talking about human rights in here. They're talking about policies. They're bringing up human rights. They're saying human rights, but then they're talking about the policies of how the human rights are protected and get the people in the jurisdiction. No different than they do with Charter of Rights. It says rights there, people get excited. But they don't know that throughout the whole document, it's talking about persons. And it's talking about everyone. Everyone's not like what do you mean everyone? That doesn't distinctly say that you're talking about a human, because everyone could be all the ones. If you're not a one, then everyone does not apply to you. If you're a two, one doesn't apply to you. If you're a three, one doesn't apply to you.
I'm an eight, so like they were giving out numbers.
Moreover, the administration would have to take specific steps to stabilize the situation. Right, so again, going back into King Alfred plan and how they have once the racial thing kicks off, they have their 8-hour plan of what's going to be implemented so that the emergency could be quickly contained. Right? Because remember, they think that they've been given the secret document of whatever that nobody knows about. So they're going to use this as the, well, yeah, so we know they're going to da-da-da-da-da, when this is them giving them the carrot for them to chase. And the real deal is what Mo Jolly brought, that nationality is the order of the day. we are a nation. We already have our own government. We already have our own heads of government, grand chiefs, grand governors, grand secretaries, grand treasuries, and all that. We already have the state, which is the mindset. So, and we are a nation. We got flag, we got national headdress and all that. So it shouldn't be that hard for our people to get down with it. And the only reason they're not down with it is, like we're saying, people on our side of the nation that thought it was only a joke and unreal and started making it seem as if this is just some religious organization that this man founded, right? Omar, you had something?
So I just quickly Googled the definition of everyone, it means every person.
Right.
So, and it's small p, which would then
Yeah.
definitely mean that you're putting you in a corporation.
Right. Possibility of joint action by U.S. blacks and African nationalist movement in elaborating U.S. policy toward Black Africa. Due weight must be given to the fact that there are 25 million American blacks whose roots are African and who consciously or subconsciously sympathize with African nationalism. And then there's a notation here. It says they know who we are, even if we don't.
Hold on.
At
Crazy, eh?
that part, right? 25 million American blacks whose roots are African and who consciously and subconsciously sympathize with African nationalism. They know who we are, and they know who we are even if we don't.
Correct.
Right? And also again that when we go speak with these quote unquote Africans that have nationalism and that we sympathize with, they're talking Ghanaian nationalism, Eritrean nationalism, Senegalese nationalism. They're talking the country nationalism. They're not talking continent nationalism. So again, that if we go to the synonym dictionary, African is a synonym of Moorish. So if African is Moorish, then it's really these American blacks' roots are of Moorish origin. These American blacks consciously or subconsciously sympathize with Moorish nationalism, which is where they're supposed to be going. But again, with our people, they could tell them whatever, and they're going to go with it. Because remember, this stuff's coming from the white man or whatever. So if this is coming from them, and then our people are taking it as the secret name of the whatever, then that means they're taking stuff from white man. And then when Morris tell them look something up in a dictionary, they're going to say, Morris, you're copying the white man. And why are you using the white man's dictionary for stuff or whatever? When they're using National Security Council memorandum as their reference point, right? And nobody's not calling them on that. The living conditions of the black population should also be taken into account. Remember, this is 78. Immense advantages in the something field are accompanied by a long-lasting high rate of unemployment, especially among the youth, and by poverty and traditional dissatisfaction with social welfare standards. Right? 70s, they're talking about youth unemployment in the black community. And there's still youth unemployment going on today. Right? Just like Brother Omar said that you had the picture there saying, you know, march and picket and whatever like that. And then today they're still doing the same stuff. March and picket in order to get some rights or some justification of something. These factors taken together may provide a basis for joint actions of a concrete nature by the African national movement and the US Black community. Basically, whatever actions would take the form of demonstrations and public protests, but the likelihood of violence cannot be expected. There would also be attempts to coordinate their political activity both locally and in international organizations. Inside the United States, these actions could include protest demonstrations against our policy towards South Africa, accompanied by demands of boycotting corporations and banks which maintain links with that country, attempts to establish a permanent Black lobby in Congress, including activists, leftists, radical groups, and Black legislatures, the reemergence of Pan-African ideals, presumption of protest marches, recalling the days of Martin Luther King, renewed of the extremist national idea of establishing an African republic on American soil. Finally, leftist radical elements of the Black community could resume extreme
No. This is the copy made it up. I'm just trying to help him. Which you can't see. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's my mom. I don't think she wants to go through it.
Finally, left radical elements of the Black community could resume extremist actions in the style of the defunct Black Panther Party. Internationally, damage could be done to the United States by coordinated activity of African states designed to condemn US policy towards South Africa and to initiate discussion on the US racial issue at the United Nations, where the African representation consists a powerful blow with about one-third.
So here's what I saw. So it says where the African representation constitutes a powerful bloc of about 1/3 of all the votes. So that now connects with Trudeau, who's over there now, because they're trying to get onto the U.S. Security Council. And what they're saying in this is that they're 1/3 of the votes in Canada is trying to get up there into the Security Council needs these people. So that's why he's over there right now inside trying to garner these votes. They're the same people that, if you follow their theory that we're all slaves from Africa, then why would our brothers over there help these guys get into a seat where they can continue the shit they've been doing to their so-called offspring here? Right? So it's a very interesting sort of thing when you start looking at this from the 70s and you start seeing that this is all still absolutely interconnected. What's happening today.
And also too how this is probably like the second or third time that they brought up South Africa.
Yeah, so that was South Africa has been one of the colonies that they got in there.
Right.
That back then in the day was probably in a very tenuous position.
Yeah.
So that they needed to sort of help keep South Africa, which, as we know, the kind of stuff, because you don't hear much about South Africa anymore, right? Because South Africa sort of got back on a little bit on track. But you see that this stuff is all absolutely interconnected.
A menace to U.S. economic interests, though not a critical one, could be posed by a boycott of Black African states against American companies which maintain contact with South Africa and Rhodesia. If the idea of economic assistance to Black Americans shared by some African regimes could be realized by their placing orders in the United States, mainly with companies owned by Blacks, they could gain a limited influence in the U.S. black community. Right, so all the people who wear the most fake nails and fake hair and whatever, those should be our people, and the people who's running those business should be our people, right? Because all the stuff is not coming from here. It's international relations why those things get here. But if our people are the ones that are the prominent users, consumers, they should be the ones that own it. It only makes sense. Why wouldn't you be the ones that own it? Why is somebody else own it? And then why, when somebody else owns it, that our people are going to be fighting to have them break them off something because they came to their community and made something off them and they didn't give nothing back to the community? Why would they? The people have taken the position of be consumer. And you can't be owner and consumer at the same time. Pick one. Right? So, you looking up something there, Yasmin? Oh.
The next part is 3. I don't think I even heard this one.
In the above context, we must envisage the possibility, however remote, that Black Americans interested in African affairs may refocus their attention on the Arab-Israeli conflict. Taking into account the African descent American Blacks, it is responsible to anticipate that their
It is reasonable to anticipate.
it is reasonable to anticipate that their sympathies would lie with the Arabs who are closer to them in spirit and in some cases related to them by blood. Actually, which is a good segue. So I don't know if you saw the IG yesterday, but got this flyer yesterday in the door. The promised Messiah that has come. Where is the prophet? Where is the prophet all religions foretold for our time? The man, the message, the movement. All religions prophesied a divine reformer's appearance in this age. Christianity, immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall the sun be darkened and the moon shall not give her light. Matthew 24:19. Hinduism, both the moon and the sun will be eclipsed and there will be too much violence and death. Mahatma Saraswati. Islam, for our Mahdi, the moon will be eclipsed on the first night of Ramadan and the sun will be eclipsed in the middle day. Daru Quini. Sikhism, when Maharaj will come as Naklang, the sun and moon will be his helpers. Sri Guru Granth Sahib, the way is over. The message, God sent Ahmed, like Jesus, to reinstitute morality, justice, and peace on earth. Divinely guided, he began an unprecedented religious revival by explaining Islam's true teachings and the true teachings of all the great religious founders such as Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Confucius, and Guru Nanak. He explained how the teachings converge into true Islam and toward one God. The movement, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, was founded in 1889 by Mirza Ghulam Ahmed, who acclaimed to be the long-awaited Messiah foretold by the Prophet Muhammad and by all world religions. The Ahmadiyya Muslim movement is the fastest growing movement in the world, with millions of adherents from over 200 countries, bringing people from all nations together under one true God in order to establish peace within man and peace on earth. The promised Messiah. God has sent me into the world so that through gentleness, love, kindness, I should draw towards God and his holy guidance people who have gone astray, and should enable them to tread the right path with the divine light that had been bestowed upon me. Ahmadiyya movement. Now we're talking about the taking into account the African descent American blacks. It is reasonable to anticipate their sympathies would lie with the Arabs who are closer to them in spirit and in some cases related to them by blood. And we already know that when they're talking about Arabs, they're not talking about some pale Europeans that are there now, right? All Arabs are dark-skinned people. So as soon as they talk about Arabs, we know that they're talking about North Africans, which we know that they're talking about Moors. And they didn't make any connection to these American blacks being connected to Africans by blood. They're just saying that's who the ancestors are. But now they're talking about Arabs and they're talking about connected by blood to them. But not to the Africans though, but to the Arabs, right? Black involvement in lobbying to support the Arabs may lead to serious dissension between American blacks and Jews. American blacks and Jews. But there wouldn't be any dissension here because the American blacks are the Jews and the Jews are Moors. Those are the Moriscos and the Moranos of so-called ones out of Spain or whatever. Oh yeah, you have that thing that you had before? It's still there. Right, so the Arab connection to the blacks in America, right, who they classify in this thing as American blacks. Now, we already know the Americans are the copper colonizers who were in the Americas before Europeans came here. So they don't need to call them blacks. They can take that and call them American. But if they do that, then they can't call themselves American and steal the birthright. So they have to put black on their stuff in order to get them to that position, right? The Moranos, the Moorish Jews of Portugal, Spain, and Benin. Black Moorish Jews of Maghreb, Sudan, Iberian Peninsula, the Moranos, the Black Jews that lived in the Iberia and Africa as far back as the time of the Carthaginians. And you can just go look up the Moranos and all their history and all that stuff is going to come up. Because it's not a secret that the Moors were converted to Judaism. That's how they became Moranos. And the Moors were converted to Christianity. That's how they became Moriscos. And then people say Morisco and Morano without tying in that those are the conversion. No different than the people who are right across from us are Moriscos. And they're practicing Christianity. Not that nothing's wrong with it, you know, whatever. Do your thing. But our lessons is give that stuff back. Because that's not for our salvation. We have our own quote unquote religion for our salvation. Right? Going back again to Ghulam Ahmed, that there were Punjabi that came to America with this branch, example, whatever of Islam to teach to the Asiatics here, but not just to Asiatics, to anybody who would be down with it. Now, they started here in 1913. 1913. Same time as Noble Georgia. They had missionaries here in the early 1900s. And the missionaries, one of the missionaries was by the name of Muhammad Sadiq. So Muhammad Sadiq was Ahmadiyya that came over here, and there's a book called Islam, and the author is Richard Brent Turner, and Islam in the African American experience. And in that book, he's talking about that individual Muhammad Sadiq, who was Ahmadiyya movement. That there's a picture of him, Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Garvey, and Noble Jew Ali together on stage. Now remember, that's Ghulam Ahmed is the one that they say is the promised Messiah of the Ahmadiyya movement. But there were people prior to him that were here pushing that Ahmadiyya movement agenda here. And those people who were here before had connections with all the so-called black whatever leaders because they were trying to get in on saving our people or being the thing that saves our people, right? Which is why, again, that, you know, they can claim that certain people are messiahs and all that stuff, but if they're foreigners to here, they can't be our prophet, because the people, if the people have a prophet, he comes from amongst them. He doesn't come from somewhere else to save them. He comes from right where they're at, right? Now another thing is, because I wanted to write this down because I talked about it yesterday. All right, so the idea is that this Ahmed is another name for Muhammad, but the founder of the guy's name is Ahmed. Who's Punjabi. The play is to have you think that Ahmed in Ahmadiyya is tied to this, so that it has that Islamic connection, that they can say Islamic and whatever. But it's really from the guy who they say is the prophet, not the prophet, not the real prophet, right? So it's no different than if we say Noble Jew Ali, prophet. Moorish Science Temple of America. And then you have reincarnated prophet. Moorish Science Temple of America. And then everybody's tying this to that. When this is a separate thing, has nothing to do with this. Same thing that Ahmadiyya movement has nothing to do with this. Ahmadiyya movement has to do with this. So if you're saying Ahmadiyya movement, don't talk about Muhammad and Qurans and all that stuff. Talk about these Punjabis who, because remember, if they're Punjabi, they're Islamic. They're Islamic and Hindu, which is why the Punjabi mosque in Punjab is Moorish, and they push it as that. The Moorish Punjabi mosque. So if the Punjabis are Moors, then they don't even have to play around that they're something that they're not. Just get it with the program. Which is again why you see certain things that, you know, dude's gonna have his turban. with the pyramid in the front, because they already know that that's what it has to be if you're claiming Islam, right? And then even if we go with NOI, Prophet Fard Muhammad. And then in 1930 in Detroit, NOI had 120,000 members. They're founded in 1930. They're founded in 1930. And in 1930, they had 120,000 members.
The phone and start with that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because they were really under this.
Oh, okay.
And all they do was change the sign to that, and then you keep all the members. And then slowly you just start taking stuff away. You start taking away nationality cards, start taking away fezzes, you start taking away, you know, who the real prophet is, put somebody else there, call them the prophet, put somebody else, call them messenger, and you create a whole new paradigm. That in creating the paradigm caused more confusion than problem solving.
For the honoring the original.
Yeah.
Question for you.
Yeah.
So last time I was looking at the joint resolution and the 75 joint resolution that was established in Congress.
Right.
During Nobel time. Is that what I'm trying to remember? Was it Nobel time or the 75 resolution? But my question is,
Yeah, 30, that would have been afternoon. That was, I think, 33 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 1930, 1930.
30 something.
Yeah, 1933. So, what was established before that? Was there anything that was established before that? The Treaty of Peace and Friendship?
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything in Congress that was established before that? Along with the Treaty of Peace and Friendship?
Was there anything?
Because it seems like our establishment as recognizing ourselves now of awakened Moors start from that particular time, no majority time.
Mm-hmm.
So between that time and the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the United States and Morocco, was there anything that was set up between that time?
Well, the only thing that we would have would be different treaties that were going on. So if you go on this website called the Avalon Project, the Avalon Project has a list of all the treaties. Any treaty that was done with anybody, you would find those in there.
Yeah.
Now, with regard to
the United Nations too has a book that I downloaded. I'm trying to remember some article or something that has all the treaties in the world.
right.
Yeah. I was looking at it. I think it was 5,000 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we look at the timeline, 1700s with this arrangement with the Sultan of Morocco and the United States to establish the United States as an entity so that those people don't get violated anymore when they're traveling out here, right? From that time to the Emancipation Proclamation, it was our rule. We were the ones that were ruling things. Because remember, if they were established 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, they're still getting themselves established. They're only established in name, not in activity.
Yeah, but is that documented? Like, is there documentation to prove that we were established before that, like we were in rulership?
No, the fact that the United States went to Morocco to get permission establishes that. Because remember, they're over here.
Mm-hmm.
So why would they Why would Europeans want to come to Morocco, but go to a guy over there, not to somebody over here? Unless Morocco is what was ruling at the time.
Mhm. No, I understand that, but what I'm just saying is, if there is any documentation, is there anywhere that we can pull up any other documentation that we can find, historical records that we can actually look at? They're proving that, or they destroy them, or they got rid of them, they hide them, or what? I was just curious.
You had any?
Treaties that were made between us and the United States.
No, not with the treaty itself.
Like, before that?
Yeah, like between the
The time
period
of
of
the time of the peace and friendship
the treaty,
till the time when Drali
right,
established
as us being ruling. I'm asking if there's any, you're right, anything that's documented, tangible that you can put your hands on.
This book by Senator Paul, Matriarchal. In that same book, they were talking about the Europeans, even those in the corporate jurisdiction of the United States, pay us vassals. They're vassals, they pay taxes. So we read about the Bay of Tunis, the Bay of Morocco, where they have to pay vassals to. If they didn't pay these pirates, they would come in and pretty much ransom the city. The city of Baltimore, right? They took like a whole billion.
Yeah.
But that's in a book, but I'm asking if there was like, if there's any like.
There's another treaty that was made. Yeah,
I'm saying even if
Because
you're saying that's in a book, but it's still ink on paper.
Yeah.
And that would any other document would be too.
No, because I was reading the joint resolution last night, and the way how they refer to the Moors is like we were taking some kind of it's like, well, it says that the Moors settled after coming over from Spain, blah 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 blah. They're looking for homes, and that's what it's in the document of the joint resolution, certified joint resolution.
Right.
So it makes us look like we're immigrants, like we're fleeing.
Even if that's the case, that they're acknowledging that the people who look like us came over here and they were called Moors. That's not a story that they push.
Yeah.
All right, so you have to find the underlying meaning or lesson or jewel that's in that thing. It might not be exactly what you're looking for, but they're saying that we came over here and, like you're saying, that we were immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The story is that we came over here and we were slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then the other part of it is that when you fast track to 2000s, then you have the proclamations above you from all the different states where they're saying that the Moors are indigenous.
Right, which they kind of, because I'm not sure, there was a name of the person who brought the resolution, the joint resolution to the table.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure who that person is. Like the name is there, but I didn't really look up to see who he was, if it was a Moor, who it was, or if it was a government representative of the United States that brought the joint resolution forth. But it was still, it's the document itself is tricky, but it still gave some sort of historical artifacts to the Moors, which I found was really interesting still. So, and even if you get rid of that document, you look at the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, which is way before 1930.
Right. Yeah.
So that could show you the historical evidence as well. But I was just asking if there was anything that exists out there, like Congress, if they have any document.
For example, if we say, does Congress have any documentation? On Congress, they have Moors head with fezzes and turbans on the building.
Yeah.
So that's alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, like before they put the library documents in the building turbans and fezzes on it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And then,
You know, brothers are here. We gotta look up the resolution in there.
yeah, well, you have to ask yourself the question too, like, if there was nothing done from the Treaty of Peace and Friendship to the time when we established, that's all that treaty or document was, that nothing, like, we could ask, like, okay, so why is that there? And nothing, no document from that time to the drug. Why would they destroy that and leave that one, or let us know about that one and not be aware of anything in between the time? Because maybe there wasn't anything. The document was that strong. Any other document or treaty that came from that time was supposed to stand the test of time and would be say valid without any type of scrutiny, no matter what, no matter what time.
And that's a good addition. But I was just wondering if they had, like, if we were ruling at that time, if we had any other documentation besides the Treaty of Peace and Friendship that shows that we were governing, you know what I mean, and our government, what it looks like, blah, 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 where we're part, municipalities, we were heads of, and all that kind of stuff. Like, how come we as Moors didn't keep those, like, didn't have any kind of documentation? Yeah.
Well, and then also think about it too, that the majority of our history was oral.
Yeah.
So our history was passing it on,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're getting it directly from the source,
Mm-hmm.
not second, third, fourth person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then after you get it, then it's up to you to do whatever. But then that's why when you do the research of the indigenous cultures and you find out about them doing the Salem witch hunts and stuff like that, that they were actually getting rid of the matriarchal bodies who had all that information,
Mm-hmm.
the historical information. So when they say, oh yeah, to get rid of information, we burn all the books and all that stuff, and then we still look around, we see that there's books around today from 1700s. You find a book from, then obviously they burned the books. So how did they get rid of the information? They got the mothers out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get the mothers out of the way, who are the the oracles, who are the seers, who are the high priestesses, once you get them out of the way, then you have nothing to stand on at that point, right?
I would say looking at illuminating, because a lot of art has been kept and hasn't been changed.
Mm-hmm.
So looking into art history can definitely tell you about our history. And what was the other thing I was going to say? There are a lot of documents have been changed, and that's true with, especially when you look at Spain, that they re-edited and went through a lot of different texts.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you do find something that says it's from that time, you still have to look at it with an eye of scrutiny,
Mm-hmm.
even if it is recorded. And art has been repainted too, so trying to find like the real stuff
Mm-hmm.
from that time would be illuminated.
Oh, yeah, no, I just was gonna ask why you would expect to find anything. Because the letter that George Washington wrote to Sultan was an apology letter for not paying rent. And then they continued to not pay rent, so what are you gonna do? Somebody, you have a tenant, they're not paying rent, what are you gonna do?
Oh, I'm not come across that. Oh, there's a letter that.
The letter from George Washington to the Sultan in 1787.
Yeah.
So it's the same time that the beginning of that period that you're talking about, that's when he wrote the letter. So
Okay.
until they had to deal with what they called in Congress the Negro problem in the Civil War era, there was no real need for either side to do anything, to say anything to each other.
Yeah.
And then I would just expound off what Tesla was saying from the perspective that their duty is going to be to make sure to have this stuff. This is a Reconstructionist time.
Yeah.
They're not going to have that documentation out there. If that documentation is there, then their stuff goes. So ultimately, what all the other Moors are pointing out is that even however much work this European did to get rid of us, still they weren't able to get rid of stuff. They still weren't able to get, and it won't be able to go. So those documents that you have are sort of the guideposts where you going where you need to go. One of the things I was going to say to you was that really what this is about is figuring out in your mind whether you want to take a stand on this or not, and then moving forward from here. Right? You're not looking back to find some document that's going to put them in check. because those documents are already there and they've been carrying on the same way.
With those documents.
With those documents, the very constitution, the very fabric of everything is us.
Yeah.
So you're now looking for something else that is not going to come there.
Also, that's an era of a lot of tribal treaties. But you can't find tribal treaties, right?
Yeah.
Yamasee, Cherokee,
That's all.
those are the people making treaties, not as an empire, but as a tribe.
And then just sorry, the one last thing too is just to jump on what, so here it's like, it is the treaties, which are the documents. It's those treaties which are, that stuff that you're looking for are those treaties. Because that's from two sides here, making agreements to do stuff. And then once you start realizing that none of those, we're not honoring ourselves.
Well, yeah, but like what he's talking about, the treaties, they built what they have now off of treaties with tribes. Right? The Treaty of Peace and Friendship was a treaty between two international bodies, an empire and a federal government. And so if that federal government stops paying you rent and starts doing treaties with your citizens individually as groups, what are you doing? You're gonna, right?
But even the joint resolution, I mean, that's still a good start. I mean, for all the awakened Moors that wanna.
They're not honoring that resolution to certain degrees. I mean, the resolution's there, but they're not, what has that, you know what I'm saying? What has that done for us really on a certain level? It's there to indicate to us that there's something in writing, but really it's our activity that's really where it's at. We're still walking around with black people. So we don't, from a perspective, I don't see we need anything more. We just need to start getting to work with what we got.
Yeah. No, sure. Sorry.
That might not be the whole document, like that piece.
Yeah, no, I have it. I downloaded it last night. This, okay, that's from up the, no, I thought this would be, okay.
You got resolution there?
Resolution on joint.
Whichever's in there.
Yeah, the joint resolution.
Do a resolution first. A formal expression of the opinion or will of the official body or public assembly adopted by both as a legislative resolution, Scooter versus Smith. And joint resolution, a resolution adopted by both houses of Congress or legislature, which when such a resolution has been approved by the president or passed, with his approval, it is effect of law.
Right.
His approval is what?
It's effect of law.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it is a very powerful document.
Yeah, well, that's why they only made it a resolution.
That's why they only made it a resolution.
A resolution.
Yeah.
Because if they made it a bill, passed it on Congress, or if they made it a statute or whatever, then people could now use it. How you're talking about, hey, is there any more documents that we could whatever? Because we're looking at the document to be what it's about. But it's not about the document, it's about the content of the document.
Right.
The document is irrelevant.
The joint resolutions, they're like law though. It's like
No, read out joint resolution again there.
Resolution adopted by both houses of Congress or a legislature. With such a resolution has been approved by the president or passed with his approval. It has the effect of law.
It has the effect.
When it's passed by the president.
It has the effect of
The
law.
distinction between a joint resolution and a concurrent resolution of Congress is that the former requires the approval of the president while the latter does not.
So before the president says anything about it, people don't really care. You get it? It's like the Senate and the other house both agree to it. But if the president doesn't say anything about it, then
It's just discussion amongst
you don't
them.
have any budget behind it. There's not any money behind it. So you gotta know it yourself if you want to know it. But it's not, you don't necessarily know that the de facto is gonna know it like that. The people on the front line of the de facto, when you go into the government office or whatever, then
And
their president didn't speak on it. He didn't say, yeah. I approve it.
and how resolute is that going to be if the president, the Senate, the whatever are really not that, and they're just a foreign European corporation? is it even a resolution now? If Walmart said the Moors or whatever like that, we're gonna take that around and show that to people like, oh yeah, look what the government said.
Well, I mean, it's still there acknowledging, you know what I mean? I mean, you can look at it that way, but you can also look at it that they're also acknowledging.
Which is the only thing that we're looking at it as. Not that, you know, we're gonna have the document, use the document to go take it to court or go take it to the whoever because they're under them and they should recognize this too because it says it in this. All we're doing is so they know who the Moors are. So they can play like they don't know.
Well, it's good to bring to it because a lot, like I said before when I was here a couple of weeks ago, still a lot of people don't know. Even people in government, judges, lawyers. Because I spoke to a lawyer this week, and he's like, "Who are you? you got this stuff from the internet." He doesn't even know it. And I was talking to him about even the corporation, that Ontario, the corporation, all that stuff. Like, and he looked at me like I'm crazy. You know what I mean? So that's they don't know anything. But a lot of them don't know stuff. So so the way
are they playing like
I use these things to my advantage in terms of enlightening them as a marker to in case if you never heard, well here, at least you can go and have a starting point. So I think we have to be again strategic and smart in how we're presenting our information for our benefit.
Yeah, but again, like for it to be to your benefit, for it to be to your benefit would mean that it's coming from you, not them. Like it's not going to be to your benefit coming from them, because it coming from them is going to come with stuff attached to it. It's not going to be clean and pure like it's coming from yourself. How we feel about Moors and how they put out stuff about Moors is going to have two different energies behind it.
But they don't even know. A lot of them don't even
No, well, even on the level, like you know, a lot of them don't know, but we're reading the document where they're saying that the Black Americans are connected to the Arabs by blood, which lets us know they know. George Washington's letter that you got, where he's straight saying, yo, like sorry for not paying the taxes or whatever like that, and then, you know, goes into some other stuff, and then nobody talks about the fact that these people were paying taxes to the Moors. You know what I mean? And now they're taxing us now. And we're not even questioning them taxing us, but we're going to question, well, what do you mean the Moors going to pay taxes and tax exempt and all that stuff? The Moors can't do that, and nationality card doesn't work and all that stuff. But they're not going to ever once challenge IRS and say, hey, how come you guys are charging me taxes? They're never going to challenge CRA. How come you guys are charging me taxes or whatever? Who are you people? Never. But as soon as Moors start talking about that, here they come to tell Moors that they can't do something.
Like,
right?
the guys that you were saying, the liar thing. When you're talking, you should ask him, what is the difference between a lawyer and an attorney?
What lawyer I don't know about America?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But there's an agreement not to say.
Yeah,
not to do it.
Probably know what
It's not probably.
Playing game.
It can never become that.
Yeah.
If they don't study that. They have to know. That's why they're attorney. They can be a lawyer, but you even call him a lawyer. So you have to know the difference between a lawyer and an attorney.
Yeah.
And then
Talking about it in terms of a reference.
I know what this words.
Yeah, no, I know.
Words.
yeah, because even from the point of reference, if it's just like with masonry, that a wife is going to be an Eastern Star and a husband is going to be a whatever degree Mason, and because of the oath, they can't even tell their own family what's up. So lawyer, friend, whatever like that, they're not really going to tell you anything really like that, because when they have a bar card, they work for the people who are fighting you. They work with the people who are fighting you, and then you're going to that guy who you're going to him on some moral thing like, that's my boy, we went to school together and all that stuff. And he's dealing with you on some, I'm a spy for the people who are working against you.
No, I don't work for them.
No, because the only reason that you would call them is because you would have an issue. But our mindset is that we're calling them and then they're gonna be hired as our whatever, and then they're working for us. No, they work for them first. Secondary, they work for us. You know what I mean? Go ahead, man.
Friday I went to the tribunal.
Yeah.
Friday was an experience. I get caught up this morning with a few things that I was supposed to call it so to come. He wants to come.
Yeah. Oh, the same one that from. Yeah. Junior was telling me. Yeah. He told me. Yeah. Another one. Another one, yo. Another one.
We went to the tribunal.
Another one.
And I'm telling you, whatever the circumstance that there was there, I just look at that. This is the road to get to find this guy.
Yeah.
All what my son went through, and all that happened, and we went there Friday. All that has to happen for we to go meet this guy. We went to Spain when he was 8 years old. Before long, never go to school. Didn't learn them in school. And he telling us so much things what took place. Even the spot where the lost in the Moorish came from. You go to that spot.
Where in Spain?
Yeah. To take you to that spot and show you where the lost of the Moorish came from. And there's the pheasant saw in the report.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, too, he run into a liar from over there too that is more European like whatever. And he was telling them things too in their language. So that would be like your liar. I would tell you stuff that you wouldn't tell anybody else because you know the language and you are from where everybody knows differently from us. I mean, there's so many things that I know. We wanted to be here, but I never get around to it. Getting there today, but you know that we're talking about Spain today. In other words, when we finished, maybe you finished like that. Because what they did, they put my son down to because they don't want to bow today. They put him aside, take him out, and wait. And that was one of the purpose of getting more chocolate property out of here. They wanted to see them to know what's happening, get them out. And then in the end, just a few left now. They did what they did. So this guy finished maybe 2 hours ago. He said, I'm not eating it. I'm waiting for him. I would take the bus. Wait. When he finished, call him up in the parking lot. Wait. We're not all the way down. Take us over to our place here. We do a hand photos. We talk, giving all the guys knowledge of where we discuss our things. That was one of the best things I see happen from whatever happened to us. Just me.
Oh, there's something like charges or something like that.
Never mind what you went through. You was born over here, I think, in Central America. Experienced Spain when he was 8 years old. So all we'll be talking about Spain, we live it like so.
Yeah.
Tell you all the buildings, everything. Where the last of the Moors came from, we could take it, go show you. And he speaks 4 languages. You been telling me how to learn a language? You take one word. 365 days make the year. Take one word and call it over and over all day. Repeat it. Tom, 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 tom. Eat it in a tom, tom, tom. Every day, one word. And then in the year, 300 words. You know how much you know. Don't more than enough. You don't have to worry. Just get one word in the meaning.
One word a day.
You know, 365 words.
For real.
Yeah. So we go deep into some real, we couldn't move.
Yeah. Energy was
We couldn't, yeah.
too high.
Too high.
Yeah. Trends in the American Black movement. In connection with our African policy, it is highly important to evaluate correctly the present state of the Black movement in the United States, and basing ourselves on all available information, try to devise a course for its future development. Such an approach is strongly suggested by our perception of the fact that American Blacks form a single ethnic group potentially capable of causing extreme instability in our strategy towards South Africa. Such an approach is strongly suggested by our perception of the fact that American Blacks form a single ethnic group potentially capable of causing extreme instability in our strategy towards South Africa. And again, this is 70s. Yeah. Right? So they have their colonial powers set up all over, and all it takes is two people from opposite poles to realize, oh, the same person that's fighting you is fighting me or whatever. Same person that's fighting me is fighting you. Wow, we just unite. And then cut out the middleman.
No, that's the same thing, one of the things the guy talked about.
Hey.
He said, you see what they tell you in so-called Jamaica? And what they tell them over South America?
Yeah.
And what I find out in Spain? And what I find out over there? And all the languages that I know, and I put them together, we need to be united.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things missing that we don't know.
We don't know.
And if we don't come together and get it together, we won't know.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. A lot of things. Just one side of the world, the other side is telling something else. But when we meet them,
I jumped in
they tell you that. Oh, they tell me this. This is why it's like that.
These guys are that's really smart, man. They're really strategic in how they plan their selection.
That's what I was talking with, I had the opportunity to talk with Pakistani, but the opportunity to talk with the Hindu brothers, because now they're attention. So I was asking the Pakistani brother, I'm like, why are you guys fighting, you know? And he goes, because, you know, the British, you know, the Indians want to side with the British. So I asked one of the Hindu brothers, I said, well, why are you guys fighting? You know?
The British.
The British. So you guys need to come together as the British. I'm showing them, you know, you can cut the middleman out, like all the British. Cut him out.
Yeah.
Yes, if they come in and they do it so insidious, if they come in and they throw up religion, Islam, and Christianity and all that.
Yeah.
You know, they were Gandhi and all that kind of stuff, right?
The divide and conquer.
Yeah, well, that's what it is.
Because I was even a couple of weeks ago looking at how they conquer Africa. When the Europeans got together, all the different European countries, Germany, France, Spain, all of them, and then they attacked Africa all at once in different parts, and that's how they were able to conquer it. And then the colonizers cut the country up in pieces. Colonize the place. Yes, because they sat down and planned their strategy,
Exactly.
which we need to do.
Yes.
We need to plan our strategy and how we're gonna get them.
plan a strategy. You better start to unite.
Correct.
We're tonight. How many people we need?
Well, in the sense of like what this movement's like, you know how prophets set up and all like that. Everybody needs to be on board, really like that.
And I think also like.
Yeah, but we're talking about this city where we're living.
Things that are still dividing us, like, as you say, like, if someone can be like, oh, I'm this or I'm that. If you're more, you can have any religion.
Yeah.
You know, but when you're still in the veil of just looking at it as you have a different religion than you don't have any connection, or you have a different situation than you don't have any connection.
Or you wear a turban and I don't, or whatever.
Exactly, you're still falling for the divide and conquer.
But you know what? But I think it's almost like we're waiting for the masses. And what if the masses never come? I think the point that we have, all of us here, we're strong enough. If we sit down and plan out our strategy and go forth and start moving what we're trying to accomplish.
But this
That's
is part.
really what I think we need to do.
But this is part of the issue is that when we say plan a strategy, we're gonna say let's meet, and then we're gonna meet to plan the strategy, And then when we say meet next time, 50% of the people aren't there from the first strategy meeting. So now we have to start over again, or we have to designate jobs differently now because people who were there, they were not there now. So now we gotta, which sets us back, right?
I don't think we gotta look at it that way.
No, we're talking from experience. Yeah.
Listen, we keep making excuses. That's really what it is. We keep making excuses about the masses. If you got 10 committed people, one person, again, the power of one person can make a huge difference. You tell them if we have 5, 6, 10 people that's committed to what our strategy plan is to execute, we can't execute it. I don't believe in that because I have done programs that started by just myself and bring other people with me. I'm talking about 2, 3 people and see the plan right through to the end. And everything was accomplished. So we got to start making these excuses that we're waiting for the masses stuff. This is a lot of people.
Yeah. We're not waiting for masses.
Yeah, we're not waiting for that. So we need to sit down and strategize, have a meeting, whatever. Strategize. What are we trying to accomplish in the city of Toronto?
Like I'm saying, we've gone through that role. Like it's not like we haven't had meetings before. It's not like we haven't done what you're talking about, strategizing or whatever. And I'm saying, even with who it is that we have, it's a daunting task because if people aren't gonna show up to do their part of the job, then that means it's on somebody else to do it. Which is running that person thin. Because remember, we're not talking about some organization or whatever like that. We're talking about nationhood right now, which is a whole different level of commitment and attention. You know what I mean?
I think you gotta put certain things in perspective. I agree totally. Right? But it's like you're talking about you started things and you launched it and it manifested into fruition and stuff. But there was an infrastructure probably set up to assist you to do that. Like there's stuff like it's something that somebody already did and it's designed so that you could do this, and if you follow this, you'll excel and you'll be prosperous possibly. This is designed, or what we're trying to do, there's a whole design that's there to counteract it so it doesn't manifest, so it doesn't come to fruition, so it can't think. So like, we don't need the numbers, but the numbers is necessary in the nation, because it's like we're saying we're a nation of Moors, and you got 8 people, all right? But then there's another 8 million people who look like the 8 who are saying they're not.
They're not Moors.
Right? It creates more of an obstacle than just me saying, okay, you know what? I want to start this business and do this thing, and let's do it. And I can bring you along with me, and you along with me, and you along with me. The infrastructure is set up for that to succeed.
Yeah, we understand that, but that's what I'm saying. That still goes back to my point. So we're going to be spending the next 10 years here waiting for the masses to join before we can start. We still have to start somewhere. Yeah, and I'm thinking that the point that we are meeting here shows our dedication. Whether you have 5 or 10 people drop off, you know what I mean? That doesn't differ from the plan that we're trying to execute.
That's why somebody new could always come in, because the stronghold is still there, right? So then that person like you now have somewhere to turn to. When you feel you're serious enough, or you're ready to take certain steps, that foundation is there. If we were continuing to do what we were doing and say, you know what, we only have 8, and we had 15, until they got 14.
So we can't go forward.
We would stop. But we're still continuing. Like, more could be done in a certain way, and certain things could probably be implemented if we actually said, okay, you know what, just us. Let's sit down and truly put our focus on this thing, instead of like one time we attempt and it might not pan out right then, and then
if you notice, if you notice that we keep bringing in all the negative points that we going back in the past, instead of we talking about positive and going forward, because we keep using the past as an excuse. That's what we're really doing. Instead of talk about the positive and the future move forward.
this is what Rotherham raised, right? You have to, we get to even start to talk about a nation building to be a part of the government. You have to have at least 5 years of study in the Moorish movement. They would consider you as sitting on the body to run government 10 years. How much years have you been studying? Since you're talking like this, how much years or how much weeks then? No, first of all, I'm saying everybody to come together as a group to say, do what you're talking about. Matriarchal basis, I never said this.
Yeah.
You have to have at least 5 years in the Moorish paradigm, a study, which is the information, the books and everything, studying, and you start cleaning up yourself first before you're talking about people joining you. Then you have to have 10 years before you can consider running anything. So with these guys here, you have to come in humbly and start studying yourself first, and then you start joining them in your study.
Yeah, no, but that's
where we take
everybody's not going to be as good.
No, everybody, you individual.
No.
You're here already. Everybody.
I know.
Deal with you. And deal with these guys here.
Right, so hear what I'm saying. That as new awakened Moors come in, everybody's not going to be at the same level, at the same point.
Right.
You're right. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that we have a starting point, a plan set out what we're trying to accomplish in the city of Toronto. Because you know what? This will just become just a meeting spot that we meet every 5 years, every 10 years, whatever, for so long. We have the knowledge that we'll be talking about for that's been around since the 1700s or even way further. So everybody's not going to be at the same level. But we have leaders here that are very knowledgeable.
No, but remember, check the point that what he was making. That I'm at 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm at 12 years.
Yeah.
So I'm 2 years into being at that place or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Individual who directly came with me in this is at the same place where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Next, the next people next to that is Yasun, Tesba. They're at 10, 11 years. And then after that,
that's all we need.
right? You know what I mean? Because
when you started talking about doing anything, you said the power of one, right? And also you were talking about the self.
Yeah.
To be able to build anything, there needs to be a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So even before we want to try to affect outside of ourselves, we need to make those changes within ourselves. That we become so in tune, so much of a tool that just walking into a place, our energy can change and transmute energies.
You gotta believe that though.
It's not a belief. That is true.
Well,
You've met people.
when I said, yeah, right, but
You've met people who are on that level. When you meet someone and you know that they're a holy person, it doesn't matter what practice they're in. You feel it on
right.
them because they're able to transmute energy.
Right. When I say belief, I mean that should be part of you. Because if that's a part of you, then we will make some of the statements that we're making of talking about the negative and going bringing up the past.
no, it's not about talking about the negative.
And going forward in the future. Because based on what we believe in our energy and everything that we're seeing there.
No, but that's why it still continues.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like being here for 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's continuing because of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Taking it and moving forward with it. We don't need no numbers like that. But if only 5 people are committed like that, if we have a email list of 60 people, and these are all the people that are committed, then it's not gonna go how it should go.
And then we also just weave in a little bit of what Brother Omar says almost each time. The second that we declare ourselves and we put those documents forward and we go about just going the proper way of declaring ourselves, then that's when numbers come in. That's when jurisdictions change because enough people have proclaimed themselves to be who they are.
Right.
And that happens on an individual basis. No one can write those papers, so you know what to say who you are.
Like even when we were in the tribunal, I met one guy, and like you said, he's been 10 years, whatever. Cameron, I met one of the speakers.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's been around, and he knows a lot. And look what he's doing. You see what I'm, if you know that part of the story, and I went to see one of the guys up here, that he's so messed up with him, that now he did stuff with him in his nationality or whatever, and it works out. Now he's supposed to meet him there to do stuff in this job. What
Conflict.
what, you know what I'm saying? You know? I met him there too. And then in the end, he had to go to Brampton. And my son wanted to go to Brampton too. But we gotta stop drawing here up top of it first. And so when we're leaving now, in other words, we met him first. So he could be the one to give us a ride down. And think about it. That would say he's still to do more. Now, it's the man that I spoke about after. First time you see one of us, and he's the one waited 2 hours in the park till we finish. And it take us wherever we want to go. Wherever the home is or wherever you want to stop before you go home or whatever you want to do. That kind of people we need.
Okay, could I give you an example? I was looking at, and I ran into this branch of the temple a few years ago. The Moors in the temple in Chicago. What is it? The
United States of America Republic?
Yes, right.
Yeah.
United States of America Republic.
Yeah.
And I have just watched their movement in the last few, and I'm talking about 2-3 years. And that's the example that I'm talking about. Like in their mind, they made up that we are going somewhere, and they started a thing. And I remember when I went on their website last night, I didn't even know how I ran into it because I ran into them about a few years ago, that branch, and I was blown away.
Now what if I tell you that USAR is not United States of America Republic? USAR is Urban Search and Rescue, and that's where they got that from.
Okay. But,
so their activity, no matter what it is not falling on the Moorish nation, because there's nothing called the United States of America Republic that has to do with Moors. Those people are playing people, because USAR stands for Urban Search and Rescue. It comes from the fire department. These people got a fire truck donated to them from the fire department of Chicago, right?
yeah, but
and that's why they started calling themselves USAR.
But they have all the associations with.
So
I'm gonna say, well, not all, but more. Well, based on what I see, all the stuff that we're talking about here,
in
terms of the treaty of peace and friendship and all that kind of stuff, like everything's on this site.
Yeah, anybody could make a site and say this is the law and this is the whatever. But when you look at what's their activity,
Well,
like what are they doing in Chicago? When you talk to people in Chicago, ain't nobody know them. They're nobody. They're like 5 Moors. They don't even have a building that they meet at somebody's house. And they have the whatever setup. Like you're at the temple because he has the leather chair, then the desk and the whatever like that, and he has the picture with the suit and stuff like that and the sash on, and you think that that's some government or whatever. When those are 5 guys in Chicago, they don't have but 20 people following them.
Did you know that?
It's all for show.
Did you know that?
But I was just still blown away by the progression, because they're registered. They have joint resolutions and stuff registered too in Congress.
That's not theirs. That's not their resolution. They're using anything called United States of America Republic and attaching themselves to it as if they're United States of America Republic. But they're never gonna show the letter that they got from United States of America telling them that they can't use the name United States of America Republic. But then they're going around using it still. What does that mean? If the so-called government called United States of America, which is a republic, not a democracy, wrote them a letter and said, you guys can't use that name USAR because it means United States of America Republic, and we're that. What does that mean about them?
Well, being some kind of frauds going on.
Right, but it also means that the people who are calling them are fraud because they're telling people democracy, and they just admitted that they're supposed to be republic. Walker.
We've been talking for the last 20 minutes about what strategy and this, that, and third. What is it you'd like to see? Because you're talking about strategy. What is it you're envisioning? What is it you think? You know, what are you thinking about in terms of, you said, of us going forward? What do you mean by that?
Well, I am a newly awakened Moor, but when I'm asking these questions and when I'm making these comments, is more maybe along the line of what collectively, what is our goal collectively in the city of Toronto?
Okay.
That's really what I'm saying. What is our goal? So I would like to know as a body of this temple, what is our goal?
In my opinion, from what I understand, our goal in this temple is uplifting poverty mind. That means putting out the way Grand Chief is putting out the knowledge every week. And no more, not every week, 3, 4, 5 times a week. All the literature that's here, the stuff that's online, the different outreach, that kind of thing. Trying to get people aware of who, that's our goal. Because that's a big step right there. As I think Esther was saying earlier, there's 12 of us, or how many of us in here right now who know who we are. And then there's a million of us out there that are still walking around under the black stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, in my view of this whole thing, in terms of what are we doing, that's the first step, right? It's getting people to know who they are. Because if all these black people here in the GTA knew who they were, they
wouldn't have any problems that they're complaining about.
Is to help ourselves, as Sister Gorson was saying, helping ourselves to study ourselves, to know who we are, to clean up ourselves, to do our changes, to do what we have to do in order to change our environment, and not vice versa. So, yeah, that's our first step. After that, like I said, once all of us, how many millions of us know who we are, the sky's the limit. There's nothing that we can't do. In fact, I actually appreciate your comment on the power of one. I strongly believe in the power of one. You know, it only really takes one person to make a difference. If you've seen that movie, 12 Angry Men, where there are 12 men on a jury, and 11 of them said the man's guilty, and the only one said it's innocent, and by the end of the movie, everybody realized that was innocent. So it really only takes one person, right?
And I love everything that you're saying. But if you realize what we're saying still is that we're still waiting for numbers. We're still waiting for the people. All what you just said.
You got a proclamation right here from John Tory, right?
Yeah.
It's what the active Moorish within the temple have been doing, right? Trying to push for that activity, even without the numbers and all that, right? We're still getting things done behind the veil, right? You got the proclamation right here, right? Letting us know that from John Tory, the mayor, the city of Toronto. What you're claiming that, what are we doing for the city of Toronto? Right? We're doing things like that, behind the veil, you know? It might not be, saying out there everything,
on City TV or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you're saying, but I would say that when Drew Ali came, he didn't say, I have an idea, here you guys figure out the rest. He said, I brought you everything. And if he didn't bring it, then his close right hand CNB or Neely L, the two most loyal Moors with him at the time, put out enough information for you to not look for something. There's enough that still isn't being done according to what they laid out as our government, our activity.
So those are 3 people.
No, I'm saying those 3 people, right, did what the prophet was one of those 3 people, the other 2 continued his work. They were trusted by it. They were proven by it. And so out of the literature that the prophet and those other two people put out, right, there are instructions. There's first of all, there's divine constitution. You know your divine constitution about it?
No,
There's the 101. Then there's the administrative functions handbook. That's put out by Todd. Raleigh said, I'm going to leave for your years long enough to teach you more how to run a government. So the mission, if you want to say, aside from teaching people their birthrights and nationality, right, and bringing people in and getting the masses, before they come in, there's still government. There's still knowing how to run a government, and creating the foundation, being able to say when the numbers are there, this is what we're going to do. Not, well, the numbers are here now, what are we going to do?
Okay.
So it's not. So it's not.
So we're waiting for the numbers to make.
No. That's why I'm answering the question. There is no waiting, right? Because if you're waiting, that means you haven't read the literature. That's why I asked you if you knew your divine constitution. If you're waiting, anyone who's waiting, and not just you, all more, add more to the judges and all types, they're still on the waiting. But they're not saying waiting, but they're waiting. Right? So that's a good question because it exposes a lot of what's going on. Is that Moors don't realize that the work that they have to do is the work that you Ali left them to do. The work that they want to do is beside the point.
That's why he said it by
right? Even though, yeah, it's nice to have proclamations and it's nice for the de facto to say, oh, hey, but that's the shortcut. That's why that's why we make so much emphasis to this is your government, this is your constitution, this is your nation, right? He gave us all those things, but now you have to master those things. You can't present yourself to them without mastering those things because they've mastered their own. And if they haven't, then there's somebody above them who has. Right? And then if you haven't mastered yours, then epistemically, in terms of knowledge, information, you're the loser. You have less. Right? You might know all about their stuff, and then when they find out you don't know anything about your own stuff, you lost.
Right. But they're leaders among us. Not everybody again is going to be on the same level in terms of knowledge because they're going to be active, awakened more. That's going to keep add to the foot all the time. Right.
So I just wanted to say one thing. Here's because you made a good point about treaties. What I feel you sort of got into this little pool here of what you're trying to sort of say. And one of the things I think, because I have that kind of same energy. One of the things I think is important to this. I'm going to say this humbly. Part of it is your level right now. Your level is that you see this and you see that this is everything and this should be where it is. Part of being in this 10, 12 years, you're going to understand the nuances that what we're trying to tell you, which on one level you're not seeing because you haven't gotten into the literature, haven't seen what this is. Because all of those things that we're looking to do are going to take the numbers, have a government, to take over all the stuff that you're wanting to do is the numbers. So that's part of it. You're thinking that 3 of us are going to be able to march off and do something. Well, what's going to happen? You're going to have Europeans in the seats that we need to be in. So part of our process is waking our people up. That's not what we're waiting for, but that's definitely part of this. So we're only going to be as advanced as the whole is, and the whole isn't there. And that's part of it. And part of why you're not able to see that is because you haven't been able to do the studying, or haven't done the studying yet to see what it is that we're lacking. And that lacking is our ability to get these people to wake up, which is what really our duty is. Because the European is waiting as well.
Of course. They are waiting.
They have to wait. They're in trouble. If we don't, most of us here who are awake right now understand this. Things are in a really, really bad state. And we are it. But what you're asking for is not, and what you see, which is what it is not there right now. And that's because the rest of these people aren't waking up because they've been asleep, even our own.
I'm not disagreeing with anything that I heard. I agree with all.
Well, what I'm saying is the fact that you keep, here's what I'm saying, the fact that I'm noticing you keep pushing the fact that we're not doing this. What I'm saying is that we've done this. The last 6, 8, 10 years we've been on exactly what you're talking about. And somehow you're coming in here and saying to us, you guys have been here for 10, 12 years, that you guys ain't doing stuff. No, that's what you are saying.
No,
yes, I'm telling you, I've been listening, I've been hearing you say it.
Like I know human nature too, so like you could be in, like, for example, like I'm in the studio and I'm working with Cujo, I'm working with one of the Moorish or any other artist, and I'm there for hours and hours. I might be working on one track. Like, you can become tone deaf, right? And
You have to send stuff away too.
exactly. So for me, I think like if someone like say for you now, you come in and you might have a vision or maybe they see something or see a loophole that we haven't seen or we're not able to see because of the time we've been in or certain things or whatnot, or whatever reason. For me, once it fits under the 5 principles, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it's for the nation, and it comes under the guise of what the Prophet left for us to do, then it should be implemented no matter what. And it could be and it should be, if it falls in line, right? Because an individual will come in and, I have the blueprint, I have the remedy for what we're missing for certain things, to get certain things
Accomplished.
visibly
Yeah.
more moving ahead than it seems to be. Because a lot of things have been accomplished, a lot of things are done, a lot of things the colonists and inquisitionists do to counteract what we've been doing for the past 12 years. Doing it all the time. You know what I mean? So I totally get what you're saying. But we're not waiting for no one, and when you come into the temple, you should have the same approach. Like, you're not waiting for the members who've already been here to try to do something for you. You're supposed to be able to step up to that level and be able to do for yourself, and then maybe make everybody else join on board too. Especially if it falls in line and it works, and it's something that's going to benefit the nation.
Like, for example, when I just started, I went to the court and they did an export here and me. Not even know what it is. No, they tried out with my son yesterday. They have to shut it down, put you on hold, because he's not going to let them do it. You get my point? They did it to me, right down there, when I didn't know much. And they tried out with my son yesterday. You have to put him on pause. And when you come back and check him to say, if you're not this person, we're going to put you through the door. You step up on them and let them know. And they hold him down again. Then they clear the court. And after that, okay, have it yours. See? Have it yours. That's what they told me. And for me, I didn't know the most I didn't know that he could make it that far. So you see,
I think everybody as an individual has to do a part.
I was not just doing about what you know.
Yeah,
I beat that part. I didn't know.
I know what you're saying. But I'm just talking about in terms of spreading the word and making people aware. Right. So, and just on my way here, on the bus this morning, I was telling somebody, and he was so intrigued. Yeah, he asked me where I was going, and I told him where I was going. And he was so intrigued. I'm because I'm like, your face so familiar. I don't know if I was both go to the same church. You know what I mean? And by me telling him, he said, man, we gotta meet, man. Because he's done a little snippets of some of the information. And I have a little bit more information on that I can pass on to him now to show him. So that's what we have to do. And I tell people constantly that come to my restaurant every week. And people step in and get a moment to talk to them. And I share the information. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to be what should I say?
Understood.
Yeah.
You gotta get the books.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people, it's for the moment though. Like, someone was gonna get excited when you're trying to tell them something new, and then you're
Don't see them again.
You don't mind. Let you be there every day to tell them what you're telling them. They're good. When these guys should tell you they're annoyed and they don't even want it, because if they were so intrigued or interested, like how they're portraying themselves to be in those moments, they would be here.
Well, that's not my approach. That's not.
No, you can continue to do what you're doing.
Because I honestly, I'm a very positive person.
Like out of the 100, you probably reach one, and that might be the important one. That's who you're supposed to.
I know, but I want you to, because we all get to know each other, and I'm probably get to know myself. I am a very positive person. So for me personally, I don't even think about all the negative aspects, because I believe everything is energy. And I believe all the positive things, and nothing is coincident. So I believe it all will follow itself. So I'm thinking, all I gotta do is my part, and that's all I'm worried about. Yeah, I'm not worried about Okay, well, maybe somewhere down the line, or he's gonna be annoyed or whatever. I don't even. That's not my job.
Were you positive enough? You ever not?
So I have one question.
Maybe you would always be wrong, whether they want it or not.
So I have one question.
You're right. You're positive all the time. Negative will come somewhere down.
Because it's positive, don't make it.
Right, so I have one. So what is your part then?
Right?
What is your part?
My part is, well, for me, is to spread the word as much as I can. So,
So we've got the word here though, right?
no, I'm not. Yeah, but people
I know, so
don't-
then your word is to go out there and spread the word.
Yeah, I am doing that. Yeah. But I think you missed the point on top of all of that. What I'm saying, all what we're doing here, I'm still saying, what is our objective? What is our goal? Down the road.
Right, so,
Mama Moga tells you about this and then has reiterated by saying whatever the prophet left.
and then look,
We could have accomplished a lot more outside of the rules and the guidelines that the prophet left. But the prophet told us, don't do that. He warned us, don't do that. If you do something, if you start a movement or a group or anything, without me in front, that's for your salvation, for freeing yourself up. It's
gonna fail.
So in other
Watch
words,
your.
you have to now master the legacy, you have to master what you brought. You yourself will never falter in your own life, in your own right? Now that you're not faltering in your own nation rules, your own personal rules and laws, then like the brothers and sisters were saying, you walk into these places and it's not an issue, right?
Like for example, like Noble said, if you don't give me your finance, it's gonna burn up in your pocket. That should inspire people to put all their finance into this, because they're losing it all if they don't. You know what I mean?